In 2008, the world experienced one of the biggest financial crises in modern history. Banks that were considered too powerful to fail started failing. Markets collapsed. Millions of people watched their savings and confidence disappear. But the biggest damage was not only financial. It was trust. For generations, people believed money depended on institutions. Banks protected savings. Governments managed currencies. Financial organizations created stability. Most people never questioned this system until they had a reason to. After the financial crisis, a growing number of people started asking a different question. What happens when the system we trust fails? Then, in 2008, an anonymous person using the name Satoshi Nakamoto published an idea online. A financial system without banks. A currency without a government. A network where trust would come from mathematics. The name of that idea was Bitcoin. Bitcoin was not created to become a quick investment. At its beginning, it was an experiment. The creator, known as Satoshi Nakamoto, believed that the biggest problem with money was not money itself. It was dependence. Traditional financial systems required people to trust institutions, trust banks, trust governments, trust organizations. Bitcoin proposed a completely different idea. Instead of trusting people, trust mathematics. Instead of relying on a central authority, rely on a decentralized network. The system was designed around one simple principle. No one should have complete control. Every Bitcoin transaction would be recorded on a public ledger called the blockchain. Thousands of computers around the world would verify the network. The idea was revolutionary. A financial system without a central owner. On January 3, 2009, the Bitcoin network officially began. Satoshi created the first block of Bitcoin, the Genesis block. Hidden inside that first block was a message. A reference to a newspaper headline about another government bailout. It was not a coincidence. It was a statement. Bitcoin was created as a response to a world where financial institutions had lost public confidence. But creating a new system was only the beginning. The harder question was still unanswered. Could people truly trust a system without trusting the people behind it? Because Bitcoin's greatest challenge would not come from its technology. It would come from human behavior. In the beginning, Bitcoin was almost worthless. Not because the technology failed, but because nobody knew if the idea could work. A currency is only valuable when people believe it has value. Gold, paper money, digital payments. Every form of money depends on collective belief. Bitcoin faced the same challenge. Why would anyone trust digital coins created by anonymous software? The answer came from a small community of programmers, engineers, and early believers. They were not trying to create another company. They were trying to prove that a different financial system was possible. In Bitcoin's early days, the network was tiny. Only a small number of computers were mining coins. The people involved were not investors. They were experimenters. They were testing a question that had never been answered before. Could a digital object exist without a company creating it? Then came a moment that changed Bitcoin forever. May 2010. A programmer named Laszlo Hanyecz made the first famous real-world purchase using Bitcoin. 2 pizzas. The price? 10,000 Bitcoin. At the time, it seemed like nothing more than a simple experiment. A few dollars spent on food. But that transaction proved something important. Bitcoin was no longer only an idea. Someone had exchanged it for something real. A new type of value had entered the world. But every new financial system faces the same challenge. The moment people believe, opportunity appears. And when opportunity appears, human behavior changes. Bitcoin was about to leave the world of experiments and enter the world of speculation. The first Bitcoin boom was beginning. As Bitcoin became more valuable, something unexpected happened. People started paying attention. What began as a small experiment among programmers started attracting investors, entrepreneurs, and speculators. Bitcoin was entering a new phase. The technology was still young. The community was still small. But the idea was spreading. And with attention came opportunity. New companies appeared. New exchanges appeared. People needed a way to buy, sell, and trade Bitcoin. The largest of these platforms was called MTGOX. At its peak, MTGOX handled the majority of Bitcoin trading around the world. For many people, MTGOX was their first connection to Bitcoin. It made Bitcoin easier, more accessible, more like a traditional financial market. But there was a problem. Bitcoin was created to remove the need for trust. Yet many people were placing their trust in a company. In 2014, that trust collapsed. MTGOX suddenly stopped operating. Hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin disappeared. Thousands of users were left wondering whether their money was gone forever. For critics, this was proof. Bitcoin was not the future of finance. It was an experiment that had failed. But something interesting happened. Bitcoin survived. The network continued operating. The technology continued developing. The community continued building. The failure revealed an important distinction. Bitcoin was not the same thing as the companies built around it. The system had been designed to remove trust from institutions. But people had created new institutions around it. And those institutions had the same weakness as every other human system. They could fail. The MTGOX collapse became Bitcoin's first major trust crisis. But it would not be the last. After MTGOX, many people believed Bitcoin's biggest challenge had arrived. But Bitcoin was about to enter a completely different phase. The world was beginning to notice. And when the world notices a new technology, money usually follows. By 2017, Bitcoin became one of the biggest financial stories on the planet. The price increased dramatically. New investors arrived. Media attention exploded. For many people, Bitcoin was no longer just a technology experiment. It became a chance to get rich. But Bitcoin was not alone. A new wave of projects appeared. Thousands of companies began creating their own cryptocurrencies. Many promised to change finance, technology, healthcare, communication, almost every industry. This movement became known as the ICO boom. For a moment, it seemed like the future was arriving all at once. But every revolution creates the same temptation. People start chasing the opportunity before understanding the technology. Projects with little development, weak business models, and unrealistic promises received billions of dollars. The market was no longer only about innovation. It was about speculation. Then the cycle changed. Prices fell. Confidence disappeared. Many projects failed. The same people who believed Bitcoin would change everything started asking if it would survive at all. But once again, something unexpected happened. The collapse removed the weakest parts of the industry. Bad projects disappeared. Excess speculation disappeared. Only the strongest ideas remained. This pattern would repeat again and again. Every major Bitcoin cycle followed the same story. Belief, growth, excess, collapse, rebuilding. The crisis was painful, but it also forced the system to evolve. Because every financial revolution eventually faces the same test. Can it survive when people stop believing? After every crisis, people searched for a safer way. The collapse of MTGOX changed the way many Bitcoin users thought about ownership. The lesson was simple. If someone else controls your Bitcoin, you are not truly in control. This idea became one of the most famous principles in the Bitcoin community. Not your keys, not your coins. The message was clear. Do not trust exchanges. Do not trust companies. Hold your own private keys. For Bitcoin believers, this was the ultimate expression of independence. A person could own digital wealth without asking permission from anyone. No bank could freeze the account. No company could block the transaction. No institution could control access. But this created a new challenge. If you removed the bank, you also removed the person responsible for protecting your money. The responsibility moved from institutions to individuals. For many users, the answer was the cold wallet. A small device designed to keep private keys offline, disconnected from the internet, protected from many online attacks, controlled only by the owner. The cold wallet became something more than a device. It became a symbol. A personal vault in a world where trust was disappearing. For years, this seemed like the final answer. Bitcoin had solved one problem: how to remove dependence on financial institutions. Cold wallets appeared to solve another: how to protect your Bitcoin without trusting anyone else. But every security system has a weakness. And eventually, Bitcoin would face its next trust crisis. For years, the Bitcoin community believed they had found the answer. Do not trust banks. Do not trust exchanges. Control your own keys. The cold wallet became the ultimate symbol of Bitcoin independence. A device disconnected from the internet. A private key controlled only by the owner. A personal vault for digital wealth. It was designed to solve the biggest weakness in the crypto world: the need to trust someone else. But recently, that confidence was challenged. A security incident involving a Bitcoin cold wallet shocked many users. A tool that many considered one of the safest ways to protect Bitcoin became the center of a new debate about security. The question was no longer only about exchanges. It was about the final layer of protection. How safe is any system when humans are involved? Because the reality of digital security is complicated. A cold wallet can protect against many online threats, but it cannot completely remove human risk. A stolen password, a manipulated user, a compromised device, a mistake made at the wrong moment. Technology can reduce risk, but it cannot eliminate human behavior. And this reveals Bitcoin's greatest paradox. Bitcoin was created because people stopped trusting institutions. But protecting Bitcoin still requires people to trust something. Trust the code. Trust the hardware. Trust the process. Trust yourself. The system changed, but the problem remained. For thousands of years, human societies have searched for a perfect system of trust. Banks tried. Governments tried. Technology tried. And Bitcoin became the latest experiment. Not to eliminate trust, but to redefine it. Throughout Bitcoin's history, there has always been a moment when people believed it was over. After every major collapse, the same question appeared. Is this the end of Bitcoin? The question appeared after exchange failures, after market crashes, after companies collapsed. Every crisis created fear, and fear created a simple conclusion. Maybe this time, Bitcoin would not recover. But history showed a different pattern. The moments when confidence disappeared were often the moments when the industry started changing. After the collapse of MTGOX, security practices improved. After speculative bubbles burst, weak projects disappeared. After major failures, the strongest builders remained. A financial cycle is not only created during moments of optimism. It is also shaped during moments of failure. When prices rise, everyone wants to participate. When prices collapse, only the people who truly believe remain. This is why the darkest moments of a technology can become its most important moments. The market removes unrealistic expectations. Companies are forced to become stronger. Users become more careful. The system learns from failure. This does not mean every crisis guarantees success. It does not mean every collapse creates a recovery. But history suggests something important. Innovation is often tested when belief disappears. Bitcoin was created during a financial crisis. It survived multiple trust crises. And every time, it forced the system to evolve. The question was never whether Bitcoin would face another crisis. The question was, what would Bitcoin become after it? After more than a decade, Bitcoin remains one of the most debated technologies in the world. To some people, it represents the future of finance. To others, it represents the risks of a system built on speculation. But beyond the arguments about price, Bitcoin represents something much deeper. It represents humanity's search for a better way to create trust. For thousands of years, Societies built systems around trusted institutions. Kings created currencies. Governments regulated money. Banks managed transactions. Bitcoin challenged that model. It asked a simple but revolutionary question. What if trust did not need to come from authority? The answer was not perfect. No system is. Banks have failed. Companies have failed. Governments have failed. And decentralized systems can fail too. The difference is, Bitcoin exposes the problem in a different way. It removes the illusion that any system can completely eliminate risk. Every system requires something. Banks require trust in institutions. Bitcoin requires trust in mathematics, technology, and human responsibility. The question is not whether one system is perfect. The question is, which risks are we willing to accept? This is why every Bitcoin crisis matters. The collapse of exchanges. The failure of companies. The security incidents. They are not only failures. They are tests. Tests of technology. Tests of communities. Tests of belief. Because every revolution is defined not by how it performs during success, but by how it survives failure. Bitcoin began with a crisis of trust. And after every crisis, it returns to the same question. Who should we trust? Maybe Bitcoin's greatest contribution was never creating a new form of money. Maybe it was forcing the world to rethink what trust really means.